Go ask your brother.
Back to another episode of Go Ask Your Brother. Lots of new subscribers since last time, and my apologies to everyone for such a long stint between posting anything. But we'll try to get back on the horse here in the new year. I want to do just a real quick run through of a different way to use Groove Agent as a VST rack instrument as opposed to layering a whole series of instrument tracks up. And I know these can get a little bit long-winded, so I'm going to really try to keep the gas pedal down here for you. So in the demo that's on the screen, what we have is a single instance of Groove Agent over here in the rack. And you'll notice that on the left-hand side, these are all MIDI tracks, not instrument tracks. And there's two things about this that are advantageous, but there's one pothole as well. So what I've done is if I open up that single instance of Groove Agent, you'll see that, and this is not SE, this is the full Groove Agent. So we have 4 slots at the top to hold 4 different kits, and those are all loaded up. So in terms of taxing the CPU, using a single instrument with 4 kits is a lot lighter hit on your system than having 4 instances of Groove Agent. Same argument for using 1 reverb and sending to it instead of creating 20 reverbs, that kind of thing. But there's one aspect of working with the multiple kits that's a little bit frustrating, or can be. So let me just let this play through and you'll see what I'm talking about. This is the first kit, the beat agent doing its thing, and then percussion agent, and you'll notice they're playing independently. Then the acoustic agent down here and the other acoustic agent there. And then for the big finish, they'll all play together. Oh, I thought that was my Grammy coming. Anyway, so how we got here is a little different than a lot of people are used to working. So let me destroy all of this. Actually, let me just do this. Let me start a new project and show you how we got here. Hello. There we go. So blank empty project. I'm going to come over to the VST tab in the right zone. Right click, I'm going to select a rack instrument and we'll make that Groove Agent. When that pops up, it'll be an empty instance with 4 empty slots up there. And it's going to ask you, do you want to create a MIDI track? And yes, we do. In fact, we're going to ultimately need 4 MIDI tracks, but we'll start with this one. So I'm going to right click on the first agent and say load kit with patterns, and just grab whatever's. Let me do a beat agent again so the end of the finished thing looks like the demo. Now I can't find beat agent anywhere. No, stop, go away. There we go, this will work. Indie Dance Kit 01. I should have gone for that right away. Okay, so again, pattern side of the house, instrument side of the house, we've got all kinds of stuff there. And to make this easier to follow, what I'm going to do is just drag one of these grooves into the track. All right. Okay, so far so good. Now, where people tend to get confused is they go to the second agent here, and let's load kit with patterns, and we'll make this some kind of an acoustic agent so that it's obvious which one's which. All right. And when this finishes loading, it'll be abundantly obvious it's not a drum machine. Well, it is a drum machine, but it's made to look like a real kit. You know what I meant. And I picked the slowest loading one on there. Okay. So here's our drum kit. And now when we go to the patterns and hit a button, they're both playing at the same time. So that's where a lot of people get frustrated. It's like, wait, I want... I've got a drum kit and a percussion agent, and I want them to not play on top of each other. As you click back and forth between these two, and I guess we can stick with just 2, with the first one highlighted, you'll see right here under the kit MIDI channel, it says 1, and when you go to the second kit, it's already defaulted to MIDI channel 2. And unless you used to work with hardware synths, MIDI channels are almost... It's cute. They're quaint. They're not a lot is done with MIDI channels anymore because there's so many other ways to parse signals and stuff like that. But to get this to work with the 4 independent kits, what we're going to do is create a second MIDI track here. And we're just going to add track, add MIDI track. Just one, and I'll call this acoustic. All right. And Cubase is smart enough to have figured out to route that to the acoustic agent already. So let's look in the inspector. When I select our first one, the beat agent, let me rename that. Right, yeah. You can see in the routing it's automatically going to MIDI channel 1. And the acoustic agent track here is to 2. And as we come into the instrument, the first one is on MIDI channel 1, the second one's on MIDI channel 2. So I can take a pattern that I like from that, drag it into that, and we'll get this warning, and it's going to say, hey, you've got pattern pads and instrument pads can use the same notes and the priority and stuff. The takeaway from this is come down below the pads and click this little button, the little, looks like a MIDI port with a P in it, and that separates the incoming signal for triggering instruments and triggering patterns so they're not on top of each other. And now when we go back to the top and play, we get just the drum machine stuff in there and just the acoustic stuff there. So that's sort of thing number one. That's how to set them up into separate routing so that you can now work with your acoustic thing as one independent instrument and the drum machine in this case is the other one. But the other thing to keep in mind now is that your mix console is goofed up. Let me go back to my 4-track version here as it wakes back up. This is just a more elaborate version of the same experiment that I've apparently turned off somehow. Oh, it's loading everything up. That's why. Pause. Well, it's getting itself figured out. If you look down at your mix console with a bunch of MIDI tracks, you don't really control volume as you would with an audio track or an instrument track. And so if you pull the fader down at all, it's just going to turn the instrument off. Let's see if everything's playing now. Yeah, so it goes away, or it's kind of on full volume, but there's some of the instruments might be smart enough to know I'll scale down all my velocity values a little bit, but more often than not, it'll just kill it. And that is why on these more evolved VSTs like Halion and Groove Agent, you have all of the mixer capability built right into the instrument itself, because now that it's MIDI notes, binary on, off, or just trigger notes coming in, we're not going to mix that the same way that we would an audio track project. So, I mean, you can, but it's complicated, and this can be a lot easier. And this is also why a lot of people ask, why do they put a mixing board in the instrument when you already have a mix console? And this is one of the big applications for that. If you're dealing with a lot of MIDI data, it's going to be easier to mix it in the instrument than on the mix console, and just sort of leave those turned on. So that's it for this one. I hope that's helpful, and we'll get this packaged up and out there before I bore everybody to tears, and we'll try to come back and do one again real soon. And as I mentioned before, really appreciate everybody watching and commenting. If you've got specific questions, problems, stuff that you'd like demoed, kick them in, and we'll try to turn them around and get them back out to you. Until then, have fun. Thanks for watching.